Joining us now from Little Rock, Arkansas, former Republican presidential candidate, Governor Mike Huckabee Huck. It feels like this is one last shot, Obama taking against Bibi Netanyahu on his way out, but it also feels like revenge to me. It feels like, you remember when Netanyahu came out in favor of Donald Trump? It feels like this is, hey, I got you now. This is my last shot at you right here.
Well, but let's be real mindful that it was Obama's people that did everything they could and spent millions of dollars trying to defeat Netanyahu and involve themselves in a foreign election when he was up for re-election. Yes, it's personal, but Eric, a lot is on the line. And when John Kerry made that ridiculous speech today, he bloviated for what seemed like an eternal amount of time. I thought, you know, that it made a Castro speech look like a tweet in comparison. But the sad thing is, he kept talking about the two-state solution and how Israel needed to give up something. I don't think a lot of people fully understand the complexity of this. I'm going to just quickly show you this little map. All that green, those are Arab Muslim countries. You can't even see it, but there's a tiny little red dot right there. That's Israel. Now, Israel has 1/640th of the landmass of all those Muslim countries. In John Kerry's fantasy, Israel is supposed to give up land and give it to people who could get it from those who have 640 times the amount of land that Israel has.
And
explain why that makes sense.
This is important, Governor. I'm sorry. This is important because, you know, in a negotiation, the Palestinians are trying to negotiate with the Israelis. The UN, with basically the backing of the United States, says, look what we have here. We have a resolution sanctioning Israel. It gives the Palestinians currency to negotiate, does it not?
It not only gives them currency, it gives them validity on the terrorism that they have sponsored and celebrated. They pay people a monthly salary if they kill a Jew. They name streets after people who kill Jews. They do not include on their maps Israel, any form of Israel, because they don't believe it should exist. Israel has offered, back in 1995, Ehud Barak offered basically 95% of the Israeli land to get peace with Arafat. Arafat turned it down. Look, the Palestinians don't want peace. They want to destroy Israel. Golda Meir said it best back in 1972. There will be peace in the Middle East when Palestinian mothers love their own children more than they hate Jewish children. Eric, this is not going to be resolved. There is no such thing as a two-state solution if the second state is laying on top of the land that has been the land of the Jews since the time of Abraham 4,000 years ago.
Prime Minister Netanyahu today said that the Palestinian government pays anyone who murders Jews a salary. The thought of emboldening these people at the negotiating table, it just blows my mind.
Well, it should blow everybody's mind. It's one of the reasons that this resolution was so totally out of line. And for John Kerry to defend it and for him not to try to stand against it and veto it is a betrayal of our ally. Look, Israel is the only democracy between Africa and Asia. It's the only country that gives women total full rights as men have. Why doesn't John Kerry put a little pressure on the nations that subjugate women to a lack of education, won't let them drive? I mean, look at the differences
here.
Help
me figure this out. And I have a lot of Jewish friends. The Washington Post did a piece a couple of days ago saying that somewhere around north of 70% of Jews vote Democratic. Given what you know and given what's going on right now, why would a Jew vote a Democrat if this is their policy?
Well, it's one of the great imponderables of the world. I frankly can't understand why they would, although a lot of people who are Jewish are maybe ethnically Jewish, but they're not necessarily religiously committed. They're not observant, and they are more liberal than they are Jew. I think that's unfortunate. But look, if anybody's been to Israel, and I've been, I mean, so many times I've forgotten, I'll be there all next week. Here's the one thing you can understand. The Israelis have gone out of their way over and again to try to create peace. But when people start talking the irrational, insane words of saying, well, we'll divide up Jerusalem, you can't do that, Eric. One quick thing to make clear. The Israelis protect the holy sites of Jews, Christians, and Muslims. Right. Can you name me one Muslim country that welcomes Christians to build and protect churches? No. You can't, because there isn't one. And to say that the so-called Palestinians, which, by the way, they didn't exist until 1962 when Arafat coined the term, took it away from what had been, everybody who lived in that area was a Palestinian.
They took it.
And created this group of people.
They deemed it their own. Kind of like what China's doing in the South China Sea, by the way. They say this is ours. Mike, before we let you go, about a minute or so, the UN, the United States funds UN extensively. The regular budget, we account for about 22%. That's about $600 million in 2016. But there's a peacekeeping budget. We've been talking about almost $2.5 billion as well. And further, of voluntary contributions, they can be $7 or $8 billion that the U.S. funds the UN initiatives. Should we cut that back?
We should eliminate it. And I'll tell you something. We ought to take that money that's going to the UN and make it available to veterans who have served under the U.S. flag and make sure they get the benefits they need. We are getting zero benefits. We're getting embarrassed by the actions of the UN. That's money that ought to be spent on American servicemen and servicewomen, and I hope Donald Trump makes it one of the first acts of his presidency.
And guess what? We have a nice piece of real estate over in the East River over there in New York City as well if we do that. Governor Mike Huckabee, thank you very much.